Yep. Right, first of all, I'd like to apologise for not publishing anything last week. Unfortunately, I came down with the dreaded COVID again. That's the third time now. It was worse than last time, although not as bad as the first time. It's all these weird variants that are going around. And I'm afraid I just wasn't in a fit state to publish anything. A big thank you to all of those who inquired as to my welfare via different sort of messaging options. I do appreciate it. It's nice to know that you missed. So now I'm endeavouring to sort of catch up a bit. Now, today's subject is the proposals by the European Union to alter the speed limits for motorcycles, forcing them to travel at lower speeds than motor cars, with which of course they share the roads. Now, I think as far as proposed legislation goes, this is one of the wackiest ones I've heard so far. But I suppose when you look a little bit more deeply into it as to, who is actually the proponent of this proposed legislation, it all starts to make a little bit more sense. And by that, I don't mean that the proposal makes sense. It makes sense that it's come from the direction that it's coming from. It's the Greens again. And of course, the justification that they're sort of giving us for this proposed change in legislation is our safety, the safety of motorcyclists. Now, of course, there's a big part of me that thinks this is so ridiculous. There's absolutely no way that this would ever go ahead. But the world that we live in today, you can't take that for granted. I've been saying this for a long time, and I'll continue to say it. The world that we live in at the moment, especially if you're a motorist, is a particularly precarious one. We've got examples of what's happened in this war against the motorist, both in Wales, with a draconian drop in the default speed limits, and in London, with the ULEZ expansion, the low traffic neighbourhoods, and of course a growth in 20-mile-an-hour zones around the city. Now, the likes of Mark Drayford and of course Sadiq Khan are both encountering tremendous backlash from the public over this, but it's not stopping them. They're continuing to push forward with it, and as I've said so many times in the past, there are politicians all over the world watching these scenarios play out with envious eyes. And if some politician gets away with it in one country, politicians in other countries are emboldened to go ahead with their own little draconian plans. And I think that's exactly what we're witnessing here. So, even though this proposal only really relates to EU member states at the moment, don't just earmark it as being irrelevant to you because you live somewhere else, because where one country leads, other countries follow where these sort of agendas are concerned. Now, this sort of legislation has been proposed by a lady called Karrima Delli, who is an MEP, but she's also the chairwoman and spokeswoman for the European Parliament's Committee on Transport and Tourism. And she's a member of the Green Party as well. It always amazes me how the Green Party never seems to get the majority of votes. They never seem to get into power anywhere, yet the members seem to hold very authoritative roles in existing Parliament. Now, her bright idea is that she can reduce serious motorcycle accidents by basically making motorcycles travel more slowly. And this is going to be an incremental approach according to driving licence status. How they're going to police that, I've got no idea. But here's what they're proposing. A1 licence holders shall not exceed 90 kilometres per hour. A2 licence holders shall not exceed 100 kilometres per hour. And A category licence holders shall not exceed 110 kilometres per hour. Now, a lot of the motorways in the European Union, the top speed limit is 130 kilometres per hour, which means that even an A category licence holder is going to have to travel 20 kilometres per hour slower than the traffic that they're moving with. Which, in my opinion, for all category groups, this is ridiculous and dangerous. Now, as part of the proposal for this legislation, what they're also mooting is to remove the power of individual member states, that's individual countries, whereby they are able to set the necessary age limits, etc., for, licence requirements. Basically, they want to take all control of the licensing from the individual member states in order to facilitate this new directive. And this is to achieve what Karrima Delli calls Vision Zero, and that is the end to road traffic deaths by 2050. That sounds familiar. Where have I heard something similar to that before? These people are consistent, but not very imaginative, are they? Now, my biggest concern for this ill-conceived proposal is they simply are not taking the behaviour of other road users into account with this implementation. Motorcyclists are, for obvious reasons, very vulnerable road users. And the perception of other road users are going to be, in the future, should this go ahead, that they are simply holding them up and getting them in the way. This is going to breed impatience. It's going to lead to other drivers not giving motorcyclists enough room. And among other types of behaviour, I think what we're going to see is a lot more tailgating. Drivers trying to intimidate motorcyclists to move over so they can get past. I believe it's going to lead to some very unsound overtaking manoeuvres, again, not giving motorcyclists enough room, taking risks with oncoming traffic, which I believe could well increase the incidence of road traffic accidents, not reduce them. But I also think this may well lead to unsafe riding practices, especially from younger novice riders. A motorcyclist should always take a commanding position on the carriageway. And my biggest fear here is that younger novice riders are going to start hugging the gutter because they get fed up of people sounding the horns at them and basically intimidating them because they're not allowed to travel any faster than they are. And the gutter, the edge of the road, is a particularly unsafe place for a motorcycle to be. The road surfaces in that area of the carriageway are generally the least well repaired. It's where all the detritus and garbage from road use accumulates, and this creates a whole host of hazards to the motorcyclist. And on top of that, that position on the road encourages other road users to overtake when the circumstances might not be safe to do so. If this goes ahead, I think this is going to cause road carnage. Maybe that's what Karrima Delli means by Vision Zero, zero deaths on the road by 2050, because by then there'll be no motorcyclists left. They'll either be dead or they'll have given up motorcycling because it's too bloody dangerous. Now, it's very easy to jump into the comments section and agree with me about how ridiculous this proposal is. And let's be straight, at the moment it is just a proposal, but it's a dangerous one that can't be ignored. But there's also another thing that can't be ignored, and that's how we've got into this situation. And it's something that I've been campaigning against on this channel right from day one. There's a disproportionate amount of deaths and serious accidents relating to motorcycles over the four-wheeled counterparts worldwide. Yes, motorcyclists are more vulnerable and so are more likely to be severely injured or killed in an accident, but there's also a group of motorcyclists in every country that have been pinning targets on our backs for this kind of legislation to come along for decades. Your archetypal speed merchant motorcyclist. The guys and girls who think that because you're on a motorcycle you've got to have your throttle wide open at all times, you've got to overtake every vehicle you encounter, and you've got to beat every other motorcycle that you see on the road. We all encounter these types every day while we're out riding. I encounter them every day in the comment section on this channel. And those are the people that have created this situation. They've created this situation for all of us, whether you live in the EU or not. Because now a politician has stood up in Parliament and put this forward as a prospective legislation. It's going to spread like a disease and it's not going to go away. I'd like to think that it will be defeated this time, but even if it is, this is going to keep cropping up again and again and again until someone somewhere gets their own way. Those riders that I've mentioned need to stop giving them the ammunition to do this sort of thing. In my views, the roads would be a better place for it. As usual, I'll find a couple of links and leave them in the video description down below for those of you that want to look through the finer points of this proposed legislation. And wherever you live, whether it's in the States, Australia, New Zealand or here in the UK, pay attention to it because it will catch up to us all eventually. Once again, thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video and my other videos, and in doing so helping to support this channel. I really do appreciate it. I'd also appreciate it if you would leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you're not already a subscriber. Now, you can help in other ways by signing up to my Patreon page or by using the super thanks button down below the video. Either way, it's much appreciated. I will of course be back later this week, so until then, please ride safely and I'll see you soon.